Hello everyone, welcome to the next video on the channel and welcome to the next GT Sport Daily Race C strategy guide, and it's an old favourite of Polyphony Digital's. We have been here many times before and it's Group 2 at Fuji International Raceway. So taking a close look at the settings for this one, it is exactly the same settings as we always get when we visit this location in these cars. So we have 13 laps to get through. Fuel consumption at times 3, tyre wear at times 13, which does seem high but does bring in some strategy elements. And you can see we've got the racing medium and the racing hard tyre available, and I'm going to be 99.9% sure that the racing hard tyre is going to be mandatory for this one. Now, while we look at some nice scenic shots of the circuit we're going to be visiting this week, let me explain that this video is going to be a little bit different to my usual strategy guides. As I said, this is a very familiar combo, it's always run under the same settings, and as such I've actually got a couple of guides already on the channel covering this race and the available strategies. So I didn't really feel the urge or the need to kind of go through all the sort of race runs again, and so I will leave links to those guides in the description. There's also a video on the channel called Let's Talk Racecraft which features this race. It's a detailed analysis sort of talking you through my decisions, why I went for the strategy that I went for, why it worked and why some of the other drivers' strategies didn't work. So I shall leave a link for that video in the description as well. Please do check that out, it's quite an interesting race and probably give you some useful insight into how this race can unfold. As for this video, as I said, I'm not going to do the race runs, I am just going to sort of talk through the strategies. I'll have all the details up on the screen. We'll go through the one stop, we'll go through the two stop, we'll go through the pros and cons of each strategy, and then for finishing the video we shall do a lap guide in the Nissan GTR, and I'll just talk you through my braking points. It'll all be a sort of race pace lap rather than a sort of qualifying lap. So that is at the end of the video. So let's get on to looking at the strategies. And you can see at the top of the screen we've got just some of the relevant information. Tyres medium and hard available, tyre wear at times 13, mandatory tyre will be hard, tyre life mediums will do 6 to 8 laps, hards will do 8 to 13 laps, fuel is at times free and presents no issues, and the pit loss is just a shade under 7 seconds. So the one stop first, you've got two options in the one stop. You can obviously start in the medium tyres or start in the hard tyres. Starting the medium tyres, you're good for about 5 to 7 laps, then you're going to do sort of hard laps for 6 to 8 laps. If you start in the hard tyres, then you're probably going to just do about 5 or 6. Got the fuel a little bit lower so you can do a longer stint on the medium tyres. Now, last time we ran this race, the one stop was definitely the most popular strategy. It probably is the quickest strategy, particularly if you can do the hard medium order. That will depend on getting sort of clean air. If you were to run sort of each strategy just in clean air, then going hard medium is slightly quicker than going medium hard, but each sort of way has its own pitfalls. Obviously if you start in the hard tyres and you've got sort of medium tyre runners behind you, you're going to come under pressure early on in the race, you're probably going to get bumped down the order a little bit and you could potentially lose quite a lot of time. Obviously starting on the hard tyres and then moving on to the mediums, you're probably going to have to do some overtaking in the second half of the race, but from the medium runners who have maybe opened up a little bit of a gap and then sort of moved on to the hard tyres for the second part of the race, you're going to have to maybe pass them on your medium tyres. Starting on the medium tyres, the sort of danger of that is that if you have a hard tyre runner in front of you, they're then going to sort of hold you up quite badly maybe, and sort of you're going to lose the potential of the medium tyres if it takes you a couple of laps to get past them. So you're probably not going to get the best out of the tyres. That is the pitfalls for each of the sort of one-stop strategies. But as I said, in terms of the sort of available strategies, this was the most popular way to go about it. And as the week progressed, I did sort of start to see more people starting on the hard tyres and finishing on the mediums rather than starting on the mediums and finishing on the hards. Moving on to the two-stop strategy. Now this is workable, but it is a bit of an alternative strategy. It's nearly as fast as the one-stop, but only if you can exploit the pace of the mediums. Going to be pretty difficult to do that from the back of the grid or the middle of the grid. It's probably more a strategy just to run from the front or the first 1 to 3 places, but you do want to be sort of only doing that if the cars in front of you are also running medium tyres. So if your cars in front of you are running medium tyres, you could sort of try and do a two-stop strategy, get an undercut, do a second stint on the medium tyres, see if you can build up a big enough gap and then stop on the last lap to sort of put on the mandatory hard tyres. As I said, it's pretty much an alternative strategy, probably try to do something different it's unlikely that it's going to work. Certainly I tried it a few times the last time the race came round and didn't really manage to make it work, and I've seen most of the times that other drivers did it, it didn't really work out for them either. As a strategy, you can maybe start from the back of the grid. You could just start on the hard tyre, do the one lap, and then move on to try and do 2 stints in the mediums and see if you can make up some places that way. Again, traffic is very much an issue in this strategy. And the third strategy that I'm not sure whether this one will be available, it's going to depend on the sort of tyre stipulation. I'm saying the mandatory tyre will be hard. Sometimes PD like to make it both the medium and the hard tyre is mandatory. So in that case, there would be no potential for a no stopper, but if it's just a hard tyre that's mandatory, there is the potential there to sort of just start in the hards and do the 13 laps. The tyres will last, they're going to be pretty second hand by the end of the race, and it is certainly by no means the quickest way to go about it. But depending on what happens around the race, around the other drivers around you, there is potential to maybe make up some positions and move forward if you can kind of just run your own race, if you like, and let other drivers have problems. Okay, so that's just been a quick look at the available strategies for this one. I always find this race to be quite entertaining, good fun to sort of play. I know people see the Tyre at times 13 and it does put them off, but that sort of tyre wear being so high does bring in some strategic elements to this one, which, given some of the more recent races in recent weeks, having some strategy is always a good thing, even if it is a sort of very much a regurgitated race from Polyphony Digital here with Group 2 at Fuji. So moving on to a few other things, the sort of penalty system for this one could well be under some scrutiny. Fuji is very much a track where you can do a lot of dive bombing, particularly in the sort of last sector, so we'll have to see how that works out. Also somewhat interested to see how the new slipstream works down this long main straight. Obviously the slipstream has now been reduced to 7.5 tenths, but it is very powerful when you're in it. So I think if you've got a car around about 4 tenths behind you, you're pretty much going to be powerless to do anything about them. This main straight that we are now on board with the Nissan GTR 2016 model, as we're going to finish the video with a little bit of a lap guide. It's going to be a race lap guide, so this is the sort of breaking points for the race and sort of tips for the race. So come into turn 1, you're looking for the 150 metre board, braking maybe just after that, maybe about 140 metres, braking in a straight line as much as possible to try and save the tyres and being as gentle as you can on the throttle on the way out. Approaching turn 2, I look for the 100 metre board, braking just after that, let the car roll in. You're trying to sort of minimise your steer input again just to try and save those front tyres, and we come into 100R. Again, it's a long radius right hand corner, try not to use the brakes, just sort of letting the car roll round, and again it's the same for turn number 4 here. Have to brake a little bit earlier for turn 4 than you always think, just to try and let the car gently sort of use the camber on the corner. So coming to the back straight, we're going to approach the tricky, tight and twisty chicane, so braking at the Dunlop sign, down into second gear, cut as much as you can of that corner, but try and sort of slow the car down a little bit more than you think, just so you're actually in straight line the next kind of tricky corners. There's a path on the right hand side here into this corner that you're looking for, that's your braking point. Just after the curb here, come off the throttle, hit the brakes and then let the car roll into the apex. Get in the throttle as early as you can. My braking point here is this barrier on the right hand side. Once it goes out of sight, or just about to go out of sight, that's my braking point and sort of cue to start turning in. And obviously the early you get on the throttle out of the last corner, you're going to carry all that speed down the main straight, and that's going to just help your lap time. So yeah, pretty much in race you're not going to be trying to push the car as hard as you can, you just want to be obviously keeping good pace, but try to look after those front tyres, and it should benefit you towards the end of the stint. It's certainly a race where people start to struggle with the tyre wear pretty early on. That is a lap of Fuji in the Nissan GTR, and that is the end of the video. So please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button if you like what I'm doing in the channel. Do check out the links below in relation to this race, you should be able to get some good information from them. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.